2018 at 3:30 p.m. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Transportation Commission for the City of Meridian. I will call the roll. Tracy Hopkins.
Present.
Brian Lancaster.
Present.
Stephen Lewis.
Here.
Ballard's here. Brent Kinsawchuk.
Here.
Ryan Leslie.
Here.
Ryan Hall.
Here.
David McKinney.
Here.
Bretton Davis.
Here.
Erica Bowen is absent. Luke Kavanagh is absent. Sean Martin.
Here.
Tony Tisdale. Rhonda Gilbert. And then Miranda Carson.
Present.
Good afternoon, everyone. Item 2, the adoption of the agenda. Any changes or notes?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agenda as written.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Lewis to approve. A second?
Second.
Mr. McKinney, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. Approval of the minutes from the March 5, 2018 meeting attached. I had a chance to look at it. Did anybody see if we needed to make any changes or comments? Mr. Hopkins, is that a motion?
I wasn't here.
Oh, you weren't here, okay.
That's the best time to approve them, yeah.
Well, you're shaking your head, so I was just moving it along. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move we
Mr. Lewis, thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Lewis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McKinney. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll sign those, Caleb. Moving on to item 4, old business. 4A, transportation projects update. Mr. Hood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just a quick update. So this update will actually start on page 7 of the memo. As our typical protocol these days, I have highlighted new information in bold. I don't have a whole lot to highlight this month, but I do want to call just a couple of things to your attention you might want to attend in the coming days. On page 8, 10 Mile Road, McMillan to Chinden, and also 10 Mile U-Stick to McMillan. Kind of companion projects there. There's a little bit of a gap. There's a section of 10 Mile that's actually improved between McMillan and Cayuse that ACHD doesn't need to widen. But basically, these two projects are being designed and kind of going through the public involvement process together. So there is a public involvement meeting on Wednesday, May 9th at Sawtooth. So if you're interested in that part of town or in that project, it's open to the public to get some comments on kind of the first blush design, about 30% design on those projects. And then similarly, Eagle Road, Amity to Victory, there's also a PIM, public involvement meeting, on Monday, April 16th at Sienna. So both PIMs north and south of the freeway. So again, if you're interested in one or both of those opportunities to learn more information about those upcoming projects at ACHD. Moving on to page 10. I just wanted to apologize that in my haste to get the agenda packet out, I put the text together and then I looked at my packet and I realized I still had the flyer and didn't scan that into the actual packet. But under the MDC other projects, there's some information on the Harvest Lifestyle Service. Chairman Ballard also sits on MDC subcommittee, and this information was provided at one of those meetings and thought it'd be a good idea for you all to see this. So again, I apologize. It was a separate attachment, not actually in the packet, but I trust you all have seen those numbers. Ridership is increasing on a pretty regular basis. They're doing a good job, in my opinion, of trying to accommodate all those that need rides, but there are some people that they're having to turn away. We are exploring as a city a potential enhancement to beef up that service because it does, again, it seems to be gaining in popularity. So just want to call that to your attention a little bit. Mr. Chair, did you want to speak on that at all as well?
Thank you, Mr. Hood. This prompted some discussion and fleshed out some additional ideas. So these riders are able to call for a bus or get a bus, and it picks them up at their house. So it led into a discussion of, could that be incorporated into transit to get people from their house to another point? So, thinking in the future, so it opens up a couple of new possibilities of enhancing the transportation system. But it appears to be wildly successful, and the Harvest Church is doing a very good job with their volunteer employees. So it's something to keep an eye on. Mr. Hood, anything else on?
Mr. Chair, that's everything that is in the memo. I guess I would I thought about including it, but didn't at the end of the day. But I will just give you a quick update on Lime Bike, who presented last month as well. They were at City Council last week and had a little demonstration out in City Hall Plaza as well. Council was generally favorable to the idea of your recommendation, although I think they're tending to lean towards the 3-year demonstration with them instead of the 1 to 2 year that you all had discussed. Had some of the similar concerns. Staff's still looking into a couple of the issues, but basically directed staff to come back on the 10th, so next Tuesday, with a draft MOU with some changes for them to consider. So that's advancing pretty rapidly too. One of the things that they asked us to just kind of understand is other lessons learned or growing pains from other similar sized cities in the nation. What do they wish they would have done maybe before entering into a contract, and also kind of touch base with other cities in the region to see where they're at. So I just thought I'd give you a quick update. More to come on that, and I think they were pretty. Lime Bike was pretty well received. With that, Mr. Chair, I would stand unless there's any questions or comments on anything I didn't touch on, or maybe it's not even listed in the memo. That concludes my presentation.
Any discussion with Mr. Hood's comments? And then at my invitation, or my request, excuse me, I asked Mr. Hood if he would include an article that I found. So on my daily blogs, there was a brief article on March 20th about the question that was on just about everyone's mind: how do you manage or corral the bicycles? And the article discusses some of the experiences from other cities and the bikes just being abandoned, if I can use that term. Lime Bike, they also had there was a couple of lines on them, and it also prompting at least one city to adopt some regulations or work on managing these bicycles. But I thought that was an interesting article on the heels of our on the presentation by Lime Bike. Okay, I'll note that Ms. Gilbert has joined us, so mark her present. Item 4A, that would complete 4A. 4B, pedestrian signal at Meridian Road / Broadway Avenue. Mr. Martin.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So at the request of the Transportation Commission, we went out and put a camera up at the crosswalk right here next to City Hall at Meridian and Broadway. And we did an observation. We took the video, brought it back to the office, and then had someone run through the video and do observations. So what you see here is her synopsis of what she observed. For the most part, heavily used, as you would expect, in AM, PM, with the City Hall employees parking on the west side of the road and then crossing to the east and then going back the other way in the PM. 40 pedestrians crossed in the AM, 39 from the parking lot. Debbie observed 3 pedestrians crossing without using the crosswalk. She observed no close calls, and all right-turning, left-turning vehicles yield to pedestrians. So that's the other thing we wanted to observe, was not only are cars stopping on Meridian Road, but we wanted to observe what was the behavior on Broadway, because one of the complaints was people on Broadway turning across the crosswalk while people were crossing the street. During the PM time period, 37 pedestrians crossed, 35 from the city hall to the parking lot. Didn't observe any non-compliance with motorists not yielding and no conflicts. During that time, we had 2 vehicles turning left from Broadway, but they crossed, or they turned once the pedestrians already had crossed the street. So they did not turn in front of the vehicle, or in front of the pedestrian. And on the west side of Broadway, 1 vehicle turned, but also with no conflict. Debbie noted that she did observe 1 pedestrian crossing who did not use the PHP or crosswalk that did have the Dodge traffic, and that was at 4:37. And then just a little background, we pulled the accident history, found no pedestrian-related accidents from 2012 to 2017. So based on, and once again, this was just an observation for 1 day, but we didn't see an issue with vehicles either not stopping on Meridian or any issues with vehicles turning from Broadway. Something that did just happen, while I have the floor here, ACHD is in the process of retiming all the traffic signals in Meridian from the south boundary is Overland, east boundary Locust Grove, west boundary 10 Mile, north boundary I think is Cherry/Fairview. About 43 traffic signals in there. So in the last couple of weeks, if you guys have noticed, things are a little bit different in those areas. That's what we're doing. The consultant first brought in some timing plans, didn't quite work, so we kind of sent them back to the drawing boards. Specifically, the problems were at the Spewies at Meridian and 10 Mile, with traffic backing up onto the interstate, which is obviously something something we're trying to avoid. But as part of that signal timing project, the other thing that the consultant did was all the pedestrian signals in that area, and I think there's roughly about 6 or 8 of them. So the one out here, the one on Franklin, there's one on 10 Mile by Pine. I think there's a couple more. I want to say there's at least 5 or 6. But all pedestrian signals have now been part of the coordination plan. So previously, the pedestrian would come in, hit the button, immediately get a walk signal, and they could now cross the street. Now they're going to have to wait. They're going to have to wait for the signal to get whatever part of the coordination plan that allows them to cross the street. So that's going to be something new for pedestrians here at the City Hall as well. It's just all this, but obviously this one is heavily used with 40 people crossing roughly every morning and afternoon. So I guess I will stand for any questions that you may have either on either the signal timing or the observation that we did.
Mr. Lancaster.
Mr. Chairman, I guess first I'd like to thank ACHD for doing this compliance study. I see in our packet that we talked about this November 7th. And as I recall, this came to us from the city's legal department, Mr. Baird. And I remembered that there was an email from the legal department from Mr. Baird that came right after we had our meeting. And I remember thinking how useful that would have been for our discussion at the meeting. But in looking back at it, there were, Mr. Baird, I don't know if you remember any of these questions, but, do you, representing the legal department that brought this to us, are your concerns assuaged, or do you have, since the concern came from the legal department, I think that's how you worded it, the city attorney's office would like to suggest a topic. Yeah, so I guess I'd be interested in whether you're satisfied or not.
It is what it is. We appreciate the fact that they did the study. It's going to be really interesting to see what change this new cycling has to do. Whether, it could be a great thing because the traffic isn't going to be as antsy because they're getting through. I think that employees here are going to have to be patient. I just saw an email go out to City Hall explaining the change that's now in place. So we'll just have to see. Personally, I avoid that lot at all costs because I think it's a terrible hazard. So I have a hard time separating my personal feelings from just bringing the topic up and having it addressed. And I think it's been addressed, and I think we can close out the matter for this commission.
So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that, Mr. Baird, and agree that it's largely a land use issue that, have the destination on the, here in this building and the parking for it on the other side of 5-lane arterial. So, there's that issue, and so I'm glad to hear that we could accommodate your the city's legal office. And Sean, I again thank you and ACHD for your efforts to do this compliance study.
Welcome.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, we will close item 4B. Thank you, Mr. Martin. New business, Meridian Police Department, Sergeant Arnold. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody.
You've been missed the last couple of sessions.
Yeah, it's been, the last meeting was a crash on Chinden that I just couldn't get away from. But
Understood, duty calls.
yep, it happens.
Yes.
So getting into this, just one of the things that we'd like to ask for is a speed study on River Valley between Eagle Road and Records, and then another speed study on Records in front of Kleiner Park, and then further to the north of Tahiti, back in that area. We're seeing a lot of speed from River Valley to Ustick is kind of a free-for-all anymore. It's not uncommon to see speeds 38, 39, 40 miles an hour. I know all that's going to be residential, so I don't know if increasing the speed limit a little bit is the answer to the problem, or if it's just continued enforcement and hopefully people get the message. The area in front of the park is kind of the same way. We don't see the excessive, so we don't see a lot of 40-mile-an-hour speeds, but 35 is a pretty consistent speed. I think a lot of the traffic is cutting through. They're going down River Valley and over to Records to get around the light at Fairview and Eagle. And I'm not sure that's what that road was designed for, but we're seeing a lot of speed. So if we could get a speed study there and kind of take a look at what kind of speeds we're seeing, how many, what kind of volumes, times a day, things like that, that might also help us out with the enforcement part of that also.
Anything else for us?
Right turns on reds. The light went up at Ustick about a month ago. That's been kind of a help.
That's bright.
It's bright, and everybody we stop says, I had no idea it was even there. I mean, it's literally, I don't think I've stopped anybody that said, oh yeah, I saw it, I just decided to go through it. They all say, yeah, I didn't see it at all.
How can you miss it?
I don't know.
They're on their
I don't
phones.
know. Yeah, well, I think they're looking to their left, and they see that the traffic is stopped, and then they shift right over to, I'm out of here, and away they go, and they're off and running.
Almost too bright.
Yeah, it's obnoxious, but it gets the point across.
Where's this? Where's the light?
ACHD installed a no right turn light for Ustick for both east and westbound traffic when the turning traffic from Eagle Road is turning, or they can make the U-turns. When that light is green, that sign is illuminated so that they can't make a right turn there. It prevents the near collisions that we've had, and I can't think of any collisions that we've had because of that, but I think the only reason we don't have wrecks there is because most people are only going about 10 miles an hour, so they're pretty easy to get stopped, but there's a lot of near misses. Almost every cycle of the light, you'll see a near miss. We're still kind of seeing those, maybe not quite as bad at Ustick, but I don't know if there's any, Eric is not here, but if there's any plan on putting more of those up, or is that going to be it, or where ITD's at with those?
I guess I could answer that one, Sergeant Arnold. It was a joint project between ACHD and ITD, and the idea of this was a pilot project. So we'll only here for now, but if it works and it's something that we want to do, we can do more. But I think we want to see how these perform first.
Cool. I think people just have to get used to it. It's gonna be a combination of education and enforcement and people starting to realize that they're there.
It's tough to associate that sign because it's some distance from the U-turn sign. And so, at least in my mind, I go, do they understand the concept
Yeah,
between
and
the
there's a lot of signs on those crossbars anyways. There's a lot of information up there to take in while you're trying to decide if you're gonna make a right turn on 55-mile-an-hour traffic.
Yes.
So, that was the only thing I had. Any questions for me?
Comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Lancaster put his head down. So
might
you got
restate those streets you were talking about?
So River Valley, maybe just to the east of Whole Foods, kind of along the side of that building, I think would be a good spot to set up a traffic study there. And then another one at, to the north of Tahiti and Records, and then one somewhere in front of Kleiner Park. Maybe just to the north of Village, or in between Village and River Valley.
Is it 25 miles an hour?
It's all 25 through there now.
And is that all that on Records then? You're just naming cross streets as they meet up to Records? Is
Yeah,
Records
so
the-
on Records and then on River Valley
Okay.
itself. There's just a driveway there in front of Whole Foods, and then just a little bit to the east of that, maybe 100 feet or so, I think would be a good spot. Because it gives, a lot of the traffic is slowing down to make that turn into Whole Foods, and then the inside lane continues on, or they're trying to speed up to get around somebody because they want to continue on, but, you know, that outside lane was full of cars, so they took the inside lane, and they think if they get going fast enough, they'll get around everybody, and they get the head start on them, but
Okay, thanks.
no problem.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lancaster.
I guess a comment first, Sergeant Arnold, and then a request of you, Mr. Chairman. But, so a couple months ago, we did have a discussion about River Valley and ACHD. Well, let's see if I can remember. So the discussion was a request to have some sort of crosswalk from the apartment complex north of River Valley to, I guess that's Big Al's right there, or, you know,
Yeah, so-
whatever that is.
yeah, so it goes from the apartment building over to Whole Foods, and then they
Yeah.
continue on over to the Village.
Yeah, and so ACHD did do a pedestrian study there and found the volumes very low. So I know that ACHD has been in the neighborhood. I don't know if you knew about that discussion that we had or what ACHD had gone and studied, but if you didn't, you do now. So, but my request of you, Mr. Chairman, is Sergeant Arnold's suggestion about a speed study on River Valley and Records seems reasonable to me. You know, the reason why we have speed limits is, you know, not necessarily to be punitive. So if they're overly low, you know, excessive, or lower than most people drive, then you turn otherwise law-abiding citizens into lawbreakers, right? So, you know, if that's the observation that Sergeant Arnold's making, I'd be supportive of requesting a speed study on River Valley and Records to be made to ACHD.
Has your department submitted that, or,
No. We have-
so, Mr. Lewis, or Lancaster, I take it that that's a motion then?
Yeah, I take it as Sergeant Arnold's here asking us, you know, trying to go through the channels and.
It looks like Mr. Hopkins is ready to second that. so-
Yes.
I will.
Or Mr. Lewis. Okay. Joe,
Thank you.
Mr. Martin, how formal do you need us to make that request to you?
What you guys just did is good enough for me.
Okay.
I'll take it back.
Very good, all right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have another question that I'd like to ask of, or a question I'd like to ask of Sergeant Arnold also, if that's okay.
Still here?
All right. So Sergeant Arnold, an observation of mine, is that the school zone here on Meridian Road, practically outside these doors or right behind us, we have a very long school zone, and there's a signalized intersection in the middle of it at Pine. I catch myself, even when I'm driving it, if I have to stop at the signal at Pine, I forget that that's a school zone until I'm at the far end of it and see flashing lights and the sign and say, oh, yeah, right, that was back there, yeah. So I guess my question for you is, how, is that an issue for you enforcement-wise? Have you had conversations with ACHD about that particular school zone, or I guess concerns about school zones in general?
So this is actually something that we brought up with ACHD in the past, probably 15, 16 months ago. The length of that school zone, and it's not just Meridian, but Meridian Middle School has a school zone that's about 1,200 feet long. This one out here is about 1,100 feet long, and the one at Rocky Mountain High School. That was actually so long that you can't measure it with the laser. It goes beyond the range of the laser, so you have to drive it. And that one I measured off at about 1,400 feet, I believe it was. The problem with those school zones that we run into is most of them have 3 or 4 streets that you can turn off of in the middle of them and get into the school zone and not realize that you're in a school zone, other than a blinking yellow light. You don't see any other signage, so there's no other signage that says you're in a school zone. If the lights are blinking, you see it as you come into it, and that's it. So we met with Ross
Williams.
okay, and John Wasson probably 3 or 4 months ago, and ACHD was looking at putting additional lighting and additional signage in the middle of those intersections, and then also putting some additional signage and lighting on Cayuse Creek for traffic coming out of the high school. From an enforcement end of it, what we run into is we stop somebody, we see somebody driving through the school zone at 35 miles an hour, and we stop and they say, well, I turned off at this side street, and I had no idea I was in a school zone. For us, that's a throwback. We can't write them a ticket. Even if we wanted to write them a ticket, one, we can't do it in good conscience because they had no idea they were in a school zone. All they're seeing is a blinking yellow light, which those things they're not everywhere, but they're out there. The other thing is the prosecutor's office won't take a case where if they plead not guilty, they'll dismiss the ticket because they have no knowledge that they were in a school zone. So the prosecutor's office won't enforce those either.
Mr. Chairman?
You have a follow-up?
Kind of, for you. So it seems like this could be a topic that we could put on a future agenda, or I perhaps would like to see it there because I think it addresses several of the people and agencies in the room, from the school district to enforcement to ACHD, perhaps legal. I don't want to undermine anything that Sergeant Arnold, that you or ACHD are doing, but I'd be interested in having a discussion with these people that we have in the room, not necessarily today, but I think that would be helpful. Whether it's this Meridian Road or you said Meridian Middle School or Rocky Mountain High School.
West Cherry, and then Linda Road.
Yeah. So,
Mr. Lancaster, would we call that signage in school zones or requirements for signage?
school zone length, or what school zones generically? How? Sure.
Mr. Chairman, if I can add something to that,
Mr. Lewis?
I think there's 2 issues there. First, the signage within school zones, and then second, the length of the school zones. Because generally speaking, the longer the school zone, the less compliance and obedience you get, because drivers don't think it's necessary to keep it 20 miles an hour for so long, especially once you've passed the crosswalk that you're trying to protect,
Sure.
so to speak.
So I have school zones, signage, and designated lengths. Okay. Anything else for Sergeant Arnold?
So, Mr.
Arnold,
Chair,
or-
we can release Sergeant Arnold. Thank you for being here today.
Welcome, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sergeant Arnold.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to call to your attention item 6E on the agenda, and so I'll repurpose that with the way you basically just read it. So it won't be so specific to that one, it'll be in general, but we'll use that one as one of the three we just talked about as an example. And I'll coordinate that with Mr. Martin here on when, if that's next month or we need a couple months or what that looks like, but it'll be as early as next month, I guess. It sounds like there's been some other discussions with traffic at ACHD already, so just wanted to, we're sort of tracking it that way, so.
Thank you.
Item 5A is closed. Moved on to item 5B, ACHD Master Street Map Presentation. Edinson Batista. Mr. Batista, welcome. Do I have that pronounced correctly?
Yes, Bautista, actually, Mr. Chairman.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, sir.
Yes, let me just, oh, sorry. You got it? Perfect. So my name is Edinson Bautista. I'm from ACHD. ACHD Senior Transportation Planner / Modeler. I started in ACHD approximately 8 months ago, and as part of one of my major tasks in ACHD is the maintenance and the update of the master street map. And fortunately for me, this year I had the opportunity to take the lead in the update that goes through this year. So I came today to give you an overview of the master street map, as requested by Mr. Caleb, and let's get this going.
Very good.
So, just as starters, I wanted to give you a brief background of the master street map. The master street map was adopted by the ACHD Board of Commissioners on January 27, 2010, and these in the master street map has been previously updated in 2014, 2016, and this map, it's updated every 2 years, so as a sequence, it goes to the next one is 2018, which is in progress, and I've been working with Caleb in this update. Just as a definition and purpose of the master street map, has stated in the ACHD policy manual, the master street map is a planning tool that works in concert with ACHD partner agency comprehensive plans. It creates a shared vision by capturing information about the future roadway characteristics based on land use plans and transportation goals. The master street map works alongside with other adopted documents such as the livable street design guidelines, specific areas plans such as the 10-mile mobility, as well as mobility studies. The master street map is a living document that it's amended periodically through development approval, studies, and other ACHD actions. The importance of the master street map, the information captured in the master street map is used in scoping, conceptual design, right-of-way acquisition, collector street requirements, and specific roadway features required through development. One item that I wanted to emphasize in this is that the master street map is not intended to be a regulatory document, but rather a planning tool that informs the decision-making process of ACHD and its partner agencies. The master street map has three primary functions. It defines a shared vision of the future roadway network between ACHD and its partner agencies based on approved comprehensive plan and street typologies. It established a county-wide right-of-way preservation map, and it established an existing and future collector network map. There are two main components in the master street map. The first components detail roadway typologies, street codes, existing and proposed roadways, and the second component detail information about the street segments. In this new slide, I wanted to show you all the content that is in the master street map. As you can see, there's and I color identify each one of them. the green one are the detailed information of the detailed information about the streets, and the red one is the street typology, street codes, and existing and future. So as you can see, you will find all types of characteristics of the master street map of the road segment. So that's a useful tool that help us preserve or identify roadways. As part of this presentation, I thought that you guys would benefit from by showing you the changes that the master street map go through. The master street map in 2010, from 2010, you can see that the map showed a certain type of collectors that later on were, through several discussions, through discussion with Meridian, and as well as adopted new comprehensive plans, we modified the map. And as you can see in 2014, many of the collectors were changed, or they were modified according to what it was currently built and what we had planned for a specific area. So for 2014, compared to 2016, a lot of the collectors were reduced. That way we reflect the location context sensitivity that we had into a specific location, as well to represent which roadway we wanna reflect as a specific collector and build it such as. You can see as well in the map, there's the different lines, the different types of line, and the characteristic of the roadway. We actually reflect what's typology for each road, and this is based on the Livable Street Design Guide. And maybe you cannot see it very well, but on the right side, you can actually see the different types of typologies that you can find, such as residential, commercial, what we consider a mobility arterial, and such. As part of this presentation, I want to include a existent number of lanes that is shown in the master street map. As you can see, there are many roads currently there are 2 lanes that, as you I will for this second, I will be moving backward and forwards within these 2 next slides, because the next one is the future planned number of lanes. So as you can see, there are several that are gonna be changing, such as give me a second, sorry. Such as Franklin, I'm gonna give you an example based on the integrated 5-year work plan, which are projects that are planned for the future. For example, this is a project for 2018, Franklin, Black Cat Road and 10 Mile. You can see this is Franklin, Black Cat, and 10 Mile. Currently, it's a two-lane roadway, and in the future of at the end of this, in the future, it will change to a 5-lane roadway. So it's something that we wanna show, something that we're planning to with the support of Meridian, to represent something, represent the future roadway characteristics of Meridian. So there are plenty other, such as Linder, Cayuse Creek Drive, and Chinden Boulevard. This is a project that currently as you can see on the top, on the north side, it's a 2-lane currently, while the south section will be a 5-lane, and in the future it will be a whole 5-lane roadway. So these type of characteristics are shown in the master street map, and it's actually used using, for example, in development approvals and as well as future projects that the master street map is used to reference what's gonna be done in the area, so, in the roadway, yeah. So, this slide, I'm sure, this is currently it's a draft. It hasn't been adopted, but it's a master street map for 2018. And it's something I've been working for a couple months, well, for several months already. So this is, it shows arterial collectors and roundabouts that is going through the area, through Ada County. So this was my presentation. I will stand by for any further questions.
You bet.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lewis?
is there a summary of the changes in Meridian between the 2016 and the draft 2018 maps that we could look at?
Well, yes, I believe that every year there's we do when we adopt them, there's a document that shows all the changes that we go through. And that's actually something that we register. So, yeah, we have those changes.
Is that part, how would you get, excuse me, how do you get access to those?
I believe through requests or Caleb. Caleb probably has the notifications that go through.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Bautista?
When is the draft finalized? Did you say that already? Did I miss that?
Oh, the draft is it's adopted through resolution, and it's presented to the ACHD commissioners for adoption.
Okay. When is that?
Currently, I'm working to implement the bicycle master plan into the master street map. So probably in a month, I probably have something to show to the commissioners.
Mr. Hall, should we invite him back?
I was just, I mean, if it's less than a month, it doesn't do us much good, but interested to see how much of the stuff that we put in place here and recommended on, it actually made it to that final version.
Well, right now it's right now we are currently working on a minor changes right now. So any major will take place in the next update. So if there's any major changes that you can be informed to Caleb, and Caleb will change to me, will inform it to us. It goes through a process of review, and depending on what type of changes, it goes through adoption through the commission. So.
Any other questions for Mr. Bautista? Well, we appreciate you coming today, and you're always welcome to come back.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Item 5B, closed. 5C, staff communications, Mr. Hood.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Just a couple of things to highlight. Actually, I think there's only one item on page 15 in your packet. Did want to extend an invite. I don't have money in the budget if everybody wanted to go, but we do have some money if any of you are interested in attending the 2018 Idaho Walk Bike Summit that we held next month in downtown Boise. So you've got the preliminary agenda in the packet. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. Registration rates do go up the closer we get to the date. So if you could look at that and let me know if you're interested. Again, we do have some money to get you all some training. So if you're interested, let me know in the coming days. One other thing that isn't in your in the communication memo, but I did receive correspondence from the mayor's office. So this is just a verbal reminder for 3 of the commissioners. Commissioner Lewis, Leslie, and Hopkins, your appointments are all up this next month. So if you're interested, I need you to submit. It can be as simple as just a 2-sentence email to the mayor asking that you'd like to be reappointed or not. Either way, I guess we'd like to kind of know. But we will be advertising those positions too. So again, just your 30-day notice that after May, your appointments are up. So if you're interested in continuing to serve on this commission, just by the way, I appreciate your service thus far and hope you will continue on. I just wanted to put that out there that your appointments do expire here soon. So, and with that, Mr. Chair, I don't have any other staff communication topics to share.
Very good. I thought Mr. Leslie might comment on the Walk Bike Summit. Is that something you're interested in?
Possibly. I have to check my work schedule.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it'll work, but if I can work it in to my work schedule, I might reach out to you, Caleb.
Okay.
Wow.
Anything else on item 5C?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
there's a couple things I wanted to just bring up to the commission and a couple questions. I wasn't sure if I should add an actual topic or not, but
So
if I
this is
can have
item
just
5D
a
open?
couple minutes.
Okay, so you're, all right. So I just made 5D, open comments.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Leslie?
I just wanted to bring up to the commission, I don't know if you guys know or not, but Ada County is having an open house or a public comment period on April 8th for e-bikes at the courthouse. I think they're getting ready to implement some formalized regulations around e-bikes, like City of Boise did last December. So if anybody's interested, send them your thoughts or feelings on it, or go to it.
E-bikes, help me out.
So those are electric assist bicycles.
Okay, all right.
They're kind of in a gray area right now as far as nationally and locally as to whether they're a motorized vehicle, are they a bicycle? They're really kind of an in-between. So a lot of cities are kind of going through the same growing pains as we are. City of Boise was the first, I believe, to actually codify e-bike regulations. So I was just throwing that out there. And I had a follow-up for Caleb on that. I was wondering if Meridian has any intentions, especially with Lime Bike possibly coming, doing some e-bike regulations as a city?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Leslie, I didn't go into that, but that was one of the things that we were charged with looking into last Tuesday by the council to make sure, one, I mean, it's interesting because we don't control the right-of-way, but on our pathway system addressing that. So park staff is looking into that to see where in city code we talk about them. Both, do we allow them, and if we do, how are they addressed, or what are they considered motorized vehicles, as you kind of just stated? And if we allow them, and if there's any regulations, is it 15 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour, or there's some other speed limits? And parking, too, is also another concern. If they're parked there, do you tow them like you would any other vehicle, ticket tow them, those types of things? So that's being looked at right now. A small subcommittee has been formed to kind of look at some of those questions that the council had. So we're hoping to have that all, to present that on the 10th to the council to say, hey, we need to change this code or that code, or we recommend adopting some code that addresses this because it's silent on it now or whatever. So to answer your question, sort of, I mean, we're looking into it to see what exists, and we may need to adopt some regulations potentially.
Okay. So my follow-up comment to that would be maybe consider looking at what the city of Boise did. They authorized class 1s and 2s on the green belt and the roadways, and class 3s are basically treated as a motor vehicle. So just throwing that out.
Chair, I have had conversations with Karen Gallagher over there, and I know that it's regulated differently, like in the foothills than the green belt. They have different classifications that way too. So thanks, and yeah, we are kind of looking to see how they've done that. So at least in the region, we have some similar laws and regulations, so it's not confusing to
Right.
have to get off your bike in one part of the green belt or slow down or whatever that case may be. So we're looking into that too.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is, there's a lot of chatter in the area that I live about Settlers Park and the lack of any sort of crosswalk between Ustick and McMillan, getting between that 1 square mile area east of Meridian to Locust Grove, then north of Ustick up to McMillan. There's no connectivity over to Settlers. And so there's a lot of people saying that there's particularly in the warmer months when they have sporting events hosted out there, baseball, football, whatnot. There's a lot of people crossing Meridian Road, either illegally or legally, even at the intersections, and it's kind of a hazard. And people were asking if it would be possible for ACHD to possibly do a study to see at either the Ashton or the Ashby crossings on Meridian during the busier time, so spring through fall, to see if there's maybe a need for a crosswalk there, even an RRFB or something. Because didn't a crosswalk get installed on U-Stick south of Settlers? And given that that's a regional park, you're gonna have a lot of people, you got a lot of people going to that park. And we go there all the time, and I see people going across Meridian Road all the time. So either at Ashton or Ashby, you know, people are curious if something could be installed there because there's a lot of pedestrian and bicycle traffic going across. I don't know if you've heard any requests on that.
How about if I turn that on? Commissioner Leslie, nothing comes to my brain quickly. That at least says that we've had some requests there, but it's something we can certainly look at. Like you did mention, we did put one on U-Stick with our U-Stick Road project to get from the south to the north. Of course, with Meridian Road type traffic volumes, I don't think we'd be looking at something just with a crosswalk. We'd probably want some kind of enhancement, like you said, whether it be a RRFB or a PHB or something. And then if that's the case, then what we do, we send it over our planning and programming department, and then it gets programmed into the 5-year work program, along with all the other priorities that you guys help set as well. When you guys do your request list for community programs, that's where it would kind of come in. But we can certainly take a look, at least to see if it makes sense, or if we're seeing a lot of volume. I know on Saturday, with soccer going on, I know I try to stay away from there on Saturdays because there's a lot of people in that area.
And you'll see cars lining that eastern side of Meridian Road, and they're just froggering it across. Okay, well, thank you.
Mr. Martin, do we need to put in some kind of formal request, or?
I think as long as you guys all agree, kind of give the head nod, then I see the head nod, so.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I can just follow up on that real quick. So I will add it, though, to our potential list of projects. You know, we just finished prioritization just a few months ago. But that's the way, you know, things get added to the list in the 12 months in between is things like that. Let me know, add them to the list, and we'll figure out how much of a priority it is. From time to time, we do have emergencies, right? And we can ask ACHD to, hey, but typically that's not our typical protocol. I mean, we look at these and we judge them as a whole, not just the flavor of the day, and that's what's in front of us, and so that's the highest priority. But just want to let you know, I'll put it on our 2019 draft list of priorities at the end. But you know, as we talk about that, maybe it moves up higher. So, but it'll be on the list for this next round too.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for adding letter D for me.
You're fine. So now that we've, any further comments on item 5D?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
You want to join, Mr. Lewis?
Yeah.
Go ahead, it's open.
Please. I just have a question. On the Ada County e-bike ordinance that they're discussing soon, the question I've got is, if Ada County passes an ordinance, does that have supremacy over city ordinances that may overlap or be on the same subject? I guess what I'm asking is, if the county passes an ordinance, are the city ordinances null and void?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I presume you're addressing that comment over this way.
Sure.
The way I understand it is that with Ada County, they are only regulating unincorporated areas.
Okay.
And as Caleb pointed out, we're looking at the issue, and we've already kind of determined that there is that hole that Brian talked about, and it's looking like we're probably going to be recommending similar regulations so that we're in line with what the county adopts, what Boise City's already adopted. We did some research with ITD, what is my 2- or 3-wheeled vehicle? And without the additional regulation, it falls into the moped category, which is a little more heavy-handed than probably is necessary for an e-bike. So that's why you're seeing the other jurisdictions going there, and with the success of the e-bike program, or the Lime bike, if it comes, we'll need to do the same. So brief answer to your question, it doesn't affect us, and we need to make our own changes.
Thank you.
Why, 5D still open, is there? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Baird, and not to put you on the spot, I'm not aware of any priority statute or preemption statute between the counties and the cities, as opposed to if the state enacts legislation, they can enter a preemption type statute, but it's kind of open.
Well, the state can certainly preempt. Oh, thank you. On or off. Again, the county can't come in and regulate within our boundaries, basically.
Okay.
It's the proposal that's currently there is for unincorporated county.
Okay, all right. That helps to better understand. 5D is closed. Future topics. We've added a 6G, the school zones, which might be dovetailed into 5E on the school zone near Pine Avenue. Anything else for us to consider? Okay, next meeting is May 7th, 2018. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
School's out.
Good.